Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You know what time it is? It's Netflix time. This movie's called Aftermath. Desperate to save their marriage, a young couple takes a deal and moves into their dream house. But disturbing events reveal the house's troubled history. So it's a horror film, just came out, it's about 2 hours long. Spoiler alert, let's get it. So right off the bat, we see this young couple just got done deal deaded. She was trying to get out the house, the boyfriend killed her, and he committed suicide. God damn, his head is gone. Brain matter and everything splattered all over the wall. Then we got this guy named Kevin and his crew, and they're there cleaning up the mess. And I'm thinking to myself, why is it only just them and no police and all that stuff? Well, apparently this was like a brand new house, and they're pretty much a contract service cleaning group after the forensics come through and did whatever they needed to do. So we got this couple right here, Robert and Claudia, and apparently the husband that killed this girl was Claudia's brother. So Robert and Claudia pretty much got say-so over the house. Here we have Natalie, Kevin's wife. At this point in the movie, Kevin pulls up on Nadia. We're supposed to think they're total strangers, but she's just playing around with him. They're really married. So they're just playing around on the couch. Did they get down to business? Or so we thought. But it turns out he can't do nothing with her. Then she's in the bathroom crying. So they're in therapy classes. Apparently, she cheated on him a while ago, and he still hasn't gotten over it. Starting to get Welcome Home vibes. Remember that movie with Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad? Well, anyway, we also found out an incident about Kevin's brother, how he hung himself and committed suicide. So they're in therapy for a reason. So Natalie's talking to her sister Danny, and she's a bit of a skeptic, and honestly for good reason. So he talked to some realtors without her consent about trying to get a new house. But the house they try to get is the same house Claudia's brother lived in. Yeah, who wants to live in a house where dead bodies just recently been cleaned up by you? Yeah, and they call that a fresh start. Well, anyway, she considers it on one condition. He goes back to school, gets a different type of job, and he agrees to all that. Next day, they go to talk to Claudia and Robert. Claudia's trying to sell him on the house. Robert really doesn't seem all that interested to try to sell it. So because they don't have a ridiculous amount of money, they're trying to lowball on the price. And considering the circumstances around it, ain't too many people trying to get this damn house. So they said for extra $20,000 it's yours. So they're unpacking. Danny's got a bunch of jokes about dead bodies and shit. Yeah, she doesn't want her sister to be in this house. And once again, for good reason. Oh, by the way, they got a dog named Odie. He keeps barking at this closet. There's nothing really in there, but she looks down at the bottom and sees scratch marks at the door. And where'd that come from? Obviously, they think about the people that used to live here. So they're trying to sleep. They can't sleep. Odie starts barking. As he checks on Odie, the thermostat's at 70, right? But Odie's feeling apprehensive about something. So now she wakes up and all of a sudden she's convinced somebody else is in the bathroom after Kevin comes back in the room. He checks, but ain't nobody in the bathroom. Next day he checks the mail, he gets porno sent to him. He calls up the company and says, I ain't getting no porno sent to me, I'm not paying for this. She scrambles it around, can't find her keys anywhere. Of course he looks in her purse and the keys are right there. Typical, right? Anyway, she goes to work, talks to her boss. Her boss tells her about some opportunity. She has to work with somebody. Meanwhile, Kevin's go back to school. He meets this girl in class named Emily, and they gotta work on a project together. Later on, he comes back home, sets the move for his wife, and they get down to business. For real this time, he actually ends up giving her the business. Later on, she gets up out of bed because she's cold. And somebody turned the thermostat to 31 degrees. She flipped it back to 60, gets a glass of water, and then she hears music playing. From the record player, she automatically assumed Kevin turned on the music. Then she looks around, sees the closet door opened up again. She looks and finds nothing. You know, she put the clothes in there at this point. So she legit closed the door as she's looking out to the main door. She sees nobody there, but when she turns around, the closet door was wide open again. Now you saw how she completely shut it. Now all of a sudden it's wide open. So she gets back to bed, tries to forget about it. It gives her the business again. Next morning they wake up, everything's all good and gravy, happy dappy. Then he gets some mail. Somebody delivers a big ass box of porn. Apparently it was worth $2,000 worth of porno magazines. I'm like, really? While he's trying to figure out who sent it to him, he's getting clowned back at work. Talking about this study buddy named Emily. Meanwhile, Natalie's talking to her sister Danny. She was playing fetch with the dog and the ball went under the middle of the bed. She couldn't get it. So she left to go get a broom or something to get it. But by the time she came right back in the room, it was only like 5 seconds. The ball was sitting on top of the bed. Just to make sure she's not hallucinating. She checks under the bed, there's no ball under the bed. So she's getting ready to meet this realtor her boss instructed her to meet. Come to find out it's this guy Nick. Now who is Nick? One, she's a guy that caught her by surprise. Two, this is the man she quote unquote accidentally cheated on Kevin with. This can't be a freaking coincidence. Meanwhile, Kevin's with his study buddy, having beers. She's got one of those Woodstock psychedelic doorways. Bringing out the good stuff. What type of studying you doing? Then all of a sudden we see Natalie in bed. She gets startled and wakes up. She looks out the door. All of a sudden she sees a fucking hand. She gets her phone, looks back again, and it's gone. Then as she's getting closer to the door, what the fuck? Who just grabbed her? Now back to the study buddies. Now I want you to peep something. It looked like it was dark when all this stuff was going on with Natalie. What does it look like right here? Daytime. Next day we see is Natalie sleeping on the couch. Kevin comes home and wakes her up. She was trying to explain somebody was in the house. Kevin was skeptical of it. I mean, all the doors are locked and everything. Then we have another therapy session. So they explain to her she has had a history of paranormal hallucinations. She wasn't even sure whether she was dreaming or not. Tends to get a little hot and heavy in this therapy session. But they make up in the car and everything's all good and gravy. Now at this point they're getting ready for Natalie's mom to come by the house. And Danny's already at the house because she's supposed to be watching after Odie, making sure she feeds him and stuff like that. She starts trying on her sister's clothes for whatever reason. She made sure the dog was fed, but she threw her phone on the bed. He getting the grub, he eating. Then all of a sudden he starts barking at the closet, which is open again. She comes downstairs and checks on Odie, who was barking at first but now started whimpering. The sink was running out of nowhere and she turned off the sink. Then all of a sudden, Odie wasn't so hyper, he started laying down in the blanket. Right when she's about to go upstairs, the sink started running again. This time at full blast. Who the fuck is turning on the sink? So she cuts it off again. Then she starts hearing footsteps upstairs. She's like, alright, fuck this. But yeah, she still goes back upstairs to get her phone. And surprise, surprise, the phone's not on the bed. Now I'm thinking to myself, she should call for help. Maybe they don't have a landline phone. That's probably why she was looking for her phone. But then she closes the door behind her. It like she saw a shadow brush up against it. Oh boy. So she turns around and locks herself in the closet. And then just like that, something grabs her out of the blue. Like, what the fuck? They come back home, they don't see Danny, like, what the hell is she doing? Like, did she feed my dog? They come back, he's just laying on the couch. And it is time for dinner with Natalie's mom. And we don't know how much of a pain she is, but Natalie tells us the last time mom and Danny got together, Danny ended up going to rehab. So I guess mom drives them crazy. She was driving Natalie crazy too, then they have all out beef. A lot of harsh words were being exchanged. To say they were not on the best of terms would be a gross understatement. Anyway, while they was arguing, they heard a loud noise. Somebody vandalized their car and put it on fire. The car was speeding away saying, "You're not welcome here." So the strangest thing about this conversation, he goes to the police. I guess he had put out an ad in the paper about the house. Somebody apparently looked up his background, and the police got the word that the perp thought he was some type of white supremacist or something. I'm not gonna lie, this narrative confused the shit out of me at this part of the movie. So next day, Natalie makes a visit to Claudia. Kevin's in the park chilling with Emily and his dog Odie. Then we get this backstory from Claudia about her brother. She's convinced he would never commit suicide or kill himself. So apparently her brother Jay wasn't as faithful to his girl Erin as he would let people to believe. So Claudia said apparently she decided to get even. She ended up having an affair too, but they never said to who. So some key information is Erin designed the house from the ground up, even though Jay paid for everything. So how both of them ended up dead is still a mystery. And then in comes Robert. Kevin and Emily are still talking, and they notice that Odie is just laying there. And they think something's wrong with him because he hasn't been real active lately. Robert starts talking to Natalie outside, and it's exactly what we thought. He never wanted to sell the house. And he wanted to buy the house back, but it's not in their financial budget right now. So Kevin ended up taking Odie to the vet, and this is where Natalie meets Emily. So the first thing that comes to her mind is like, oh, you trying to get back at me? That's what it is? You ain't got time to think about that. You got to think about Odie. So apparently Odie's condition is bad. Something he ate is giving him heart problems. It's something deteriorating the dog from the inside out. It sounds like some type of poison or something, but we know Danny wouldn't have poisoned the dog, you know what I'm saying? So what could it be? So when they get back to the house, some flowers arrive for Natalie, and Kevin is pissed off because the card said the flowers were from Nick. So she lets him know she ain't know shit about the flowers. But considering that's the guy she cheated on him with, he's starting to have his doubts. He ain't trying to hear none of that shit. Then they go to bed, she starts hearing noises again. Kevin's like, man, I ain't hearing nothing. But then that's when he heard it too. He was like, get your phone ready to call the cops. And she looks over, she ain't found the phone. And Kevin rushes downstairs like, fuck this shit, we about to find out who's popping, what's good. But they don't find nobody. So then the police gets there, and she breaks down everything she's been seeing or thinks she's been seeing. And it sounds like some paranormal hallucinations, right? So the police pretty much think she's crazy at this point. And Kevin's starting to think those too, even though he won't say it. But they do end up installing an alarm system. Then she picked up late text messages from her sister Danny telling her, sorry, I needed to go away for a while. Because at this point, she pretty much talked to her sister every day. So I'm thinking to myself, why the fuck has she not been concerned about her whereabouts? Well, anyway, he goes back to work, going to another spot to clean up. It's like a garage or something. He doesn't really see nothing that disgusting, but he starts throwing up like crazy. I'm pretty sure he's used to all this stuff, so why is he vomiting it now? Natalie ends up calling Nick about the proposal and everything, you know, the realtor stuff. So she talks to him about the flowers, but Nick is not the one that sent the flowers. Somebody must have signed his name off on the shit. I guess she had found her phone. She starts going through pictures on her phone. And this picture somebody took of her sleeping. She knows Kevin didn't have her phone, so she's like, what the fuck? Then all of a sudden the record player cuts on again, plays that same song. She turns it off again. Keep in mind, Kevin's not home. She's in the house by herself. Then she thinks somebody's in there chasing her. Tries to call 911. Well, she heard tapping. Turns out she just heard tapping from the trees hitting the window. But then who the fuck is that? Oh shit, Natalie, get the fuck out right now. She tries to call 911 again, but they're not even taking her that serious or whatever. She's going from room to room, she starts freaking out. Kevin comes back home. All of a sudden, she's going out by the window, out by the pool. Her arm reaches out and grabs her, and she ends up falling off the balcony. But luckily, she falls straight into the pool. Kevin comes in time to rescue her. Police say they checked all over the house, they ain't seen nobody there. No fingerprints or nothing. So was somebody really chasing her or is she having hallucinations again? She's like, fuck this shit, I'm not staying in this house tonight, I'm going to a hotel or something. First thing comes through his mind is like, we ain't got no money for a hotel, credit card's maxed out, what you gonna go see Nick? She's looking like, alright. So the police bring Kevin in to show him something. The security also has camera footage that he has set up in the house. So they go over the tape of her running, but nobody's chasing her. It shows nobody chasing her from the time she got to the room to the time she got to the balcony and fell out the window and into the pool. So at this point they go to therapy again and Kevin is convinced that she's definitely hallucinating. And they get into a heated argument, which continues on into the parking lot, which continues until Kevin starts feeling some pain, and then he passes out. So apparently they talk to the doctors, he has something called necria in his system, and apparently it's the same thing Odie had in his system. So it seems like somebody poisoned both Odie and Kevin. So the police are coming to conclusions like maybe she did try to poison both of them. One, they don't have no evidence of that, and two, why would she do this? To take them both out so she could be with Nick? It's not logical, but the police are starting to suspect that. But they don't have nothing, so they let her go. So she comes back home, Kevin gets out of the hospital. So she always puts his lunches in like blue containers. He's starting to get skeptical of these blue containers. Keep in mind the whole row in his refrigerator earlier was empty. He's skeptical too. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna just get me a banana. So he goes about his day, and so does she. Then she opens up the door later on. This guy named Travis is holding flowers. This guy was in a blue truck earlier and across the street just driving off, and she was getting paranoid. So apparently this is the guy that sent her flowers the last time and signed it under Nick's name. But how the fuck would he know Nick? Then he busts down the door and attempts to rape her. But she ended up grabbing some scissors that was on the ground and stabbing him in the back of his back. So they go back to the police and they get some information. Turns out Travis was the one that sent the flowers, vandalized the car, was doing all this other stuff outside of the house. Well, why would he do all this? So even more, Travis was paid to do this by Robert. They checked through Travis's work history. He was making a lot of phone calls to Robert. Apparently Robert was trying to do anything to spook the couple out of the house just so he can get it back. But why? To sell it to more people in the open market or do whatever you need to do with it? I don't know. So at that settled, they ended up in a conversation thinking about getting separated. But now at this point I have two questions. Who tried to poison Kevin and Odie? And where the fuck is Danny at? So while Kevin's at school, he gets a text message from Natalie telling him, I think it's best you just stay out tonight. So considering they having that conversation last night about trying to be separated, guess who he's going to be staying out with? Emily, obviously. Natalie's chilling, drinking wine in the house. Later on, she calling Kevin. Kevin ain't picking up the phone. She used a text message or voicemail talking about she's sorry, she apologized for everything. She doesn't mean what she said last night, all this other stuff. But they ain't doing nothing, they just chilling. And she's chilling in the bathtub and she hears all these noises. So then Kevin calls and she's like, where have you been? He's like, you don't remember the text message? You told me not to come home. She's like, when? He resends the text message and she's like, I ain't typed that. So she's convinced somebody's still in the house. Somebody picked up her phone. So apparently throughout the day, she had a camera set up in the bedroom. And as she was asleep, she sees somebody calling out from under the bed. Who the fuck is that with her phone scrolling through it? She's looking at the camera horrified. Then somebody at the blue snatches her up. Meanwhile, Kevin's about to come back home. He's picking up some flowers from the store. Then all of a sudden, we see Natalie locked up in his basement with a bunch of cameras connected to TVs. Then we see all these pictures on the wall. And there's pictures of Jay and Aaron. Oh shit. Then there's pictures of Aaron and some other guy. Then we find out this is the other guy. He's the one that's been living under the basement, and he's the one that killed Jay and Aaron, the couple at the beginning of the movie. And we also found out he's the one that has doses of neck running around. Yeah, he's been poisoning Odie and Kevin's food. Hitting him with needles, whatever he was doing. But one other question still remains. Where the hell is Danny? Slowly snaps, this dude ends up kissing Natalie. He wants to trust her for a second. I guess he knows she's a cheater too, something like that. But then she looked over at the screen, obviously saw Kevin. This guy's alerted to it. And he's about to go handle it while he stuffs a gag in her mouth. So Kevin looks at the refrigerator and Natalie put up stickers about meeting him in a bubble bath. So he's basically thinking he's on a scavenger hunt. Doesn't find her in the bathtub, so he's about to check the bed. He gets wrapped up in the bed. He feels blood on his hands. Turns around, holy shit, it's Danny. She's dead as shit. And here comes the guy creeping from behind. Meanwhile, Danny somehow got herself free. Natalie. Now it's a battle to the death. This guy's trying to inject the poison in him. Back and forth tussle. Kevin ends up getting knocked out. Natalie gets up there. It's a back and forth tussle. The guy ends up trying to choke out Natalie, and just when she's about to die, Kevin comes back and stabs her with the needle. Natalie gets some scissors and stabs him in the neck with it. So she stayed grabbing some fucking scissors. Police come, everything all good and gravy. A month later, they ready to move and get the fuck out of there. Yeah, they ended up getting a new dog. I think Odie was done for. They finished packing. They said, fuck this house, we out. Last thing we see is the closet door closing by itself again. Who's closing that damn door? Now, apparently they said this movie was based on true events. I'm not so sure about that. I might do my research on that. Aftermath on Netflix. Check it out. Like, subscribe, do all that. You're on top of this. Look, these are the easy best stars. Big. You got that slogan.